Okay, and it says we are now live. So let me do my little sound checks here and make sure everything is well and good. There we are. Yep. Okay, good. Hi, welcome to Critical Q&A number 521 on this November 16th in the year of our Lord 2025. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Let's go ahead and get the chat box set up as our first order of business. Please put your questions here. That way, if you have questions for me, you can put them in this question box and I will get them and throw them up on the screen like we do. Okay, let's get that up there and let's switch over to our chat box screen, whatever. It says we got a few people on board watching right now, so welcome on this Sunday. Glad you're joining me, and glad you're here to ask me questions and chat and talk and do the things. I am happy to be sitting here with my freedom. Not being locked up. Very happy to be here today with you. And it is a gorgeous, gorgeous day outside right now today here in Denver. A balmy low 70s, high 60s temperatures in the middle of November, which my wife is incredibly alarmed by because there is not an ounce or hint of snow anywhere here in Denver right now in this area. But you know, climate change is a hoax, and nobody knows what they're talking about. And you know, the temperatures are not rising, and blah 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 blah. So, whatever. Okay, now I am determined this week to not forget that I have count them, three questions in the queue in the on the question screen for us, as well as whatever you guys are going to send my way in the Q&A box. Yeah, I guess, oh, wow, Norway. Hey. Awesome. Yeah, no Hawaiian shirts today. I thought about it. I definitely did, but it's just a little too chilly, and we're going to go out afterwards. Mel and I went out yesterday and saw one battle after another with Paul Thomas Anderson's new movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn, and gotta say, it wasn't Paul Thomas Anderson's best work. I will definitely say that. It wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't a great movie either. All right, now let us begin the show as we have been doing lately with our critical thinking cards. As you guys know, critical thinking is a very important topic to me, and one that I'm never ever going to stop promoting. It's a foolish thing to think that people's ability to use their cognitive functions to think is ever going to override their emotions, because it won't. And people are driven by their emotional behavior. But we can do our best to try to apply critical thinking the same way that if you were to get into a fight, you would do your best to apply martial arts to that situation if you were trained to do so. And if you're not trained to do so and you try to employ martial arts in a fight, you look like a bloody idiot. And you're going to get your butt kicked, right? And if you try to employ critical thinking without understanding it, or how it works, or what logic and reason and this kind of thing is, you know, you're just setting yourself up for failure. When the victory is right there. It's not hard, but it does take practice and work. So today, our bias is what's called sunk cost fallacy. You irrationally cling to things that you have already have cost you something. When we've invested our time, money, or emotion into something, it hurts to let it go. You're invested, right? Ask yourself, had I not already invested something, would I still do so now? Right? And it's a tough one. That's sunk cost is one of the toughest ones to spot. And once you've spotted it and you understand what's happening to you, it is still one of the hardest things to overcome. because we've invested time and money, and we so want. Have you ever wondered why is this such a tough one? It's because of reciprocity. It's because we have an inborn, inherent, natural desire and need for equality, for there to be tit for tat. You know, and so if I sink all this time and all this money and all this effort into something, I need for it to give me back an equal or more amount back, right? And if it doesn't, I'm gonna stick with it, man. I'm just gonna make this thing work. I'm gonna make it, you know. And when it's something like Scientology or Landmark, damn, I mean, forget it. You know, you're never gonna get even Steven with those folks. They're never going to give you what you've paid for. And that's one of the most difficult things for people to get their head around when it comes to membership in a cult and leaving a cult. Is not only is it hard because of all the community and all the, and, you know, and all the things as far as the mind control and the thought stopping cliches and all the stuff that all the fear and everything else that they put into you. But then on top of all that, right, you're like, I need to, you know, get this stuff back. All right. Thank you very much for your nice words there. Now, let's go ahead and start getting some questions into the question box. I see a few coming in here, which is awesome. You guys got some great questions for me. Thank you very much. And I really, really hope y'all enjoyed the podcast this week. I did. I got to tell you guys, I got to say, Patty Moher, I think I got her last name pronounced right. Tony messed me up on it. But Patty is one of the most fun people I have ever talked to on my podcast. I absolutely had a blast just going back and forth with her and talking about her Scientology history and some of the nonsense with this group and what it gets up to. And it was just a fun, laughing kind of talk. So I hope you guys will check that out. The podcast, Speaking of Cults podcast, it was really a lot of fun this week. All right. Now, this being a question and answer show, I wanted to, what do I want to say? I will say one thing about One Battle After Another that got me thinking in the cult fight. Got me thinking a lot, actually. It is a thought-provoking film. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that One Battle After Another is just bad. It's not bad. It's a perfectly good movie, but it's not Paul Thomas Anderson level good. And it was a little disappointing for that reason, right? It's not as tightly knit. There are loose threads all over the place, and it's not as emotionally true to reality as his movies tend to be. But it got me thinking very much about resistance and fighting and, you know, fight the man, fight the power, right? Pushing back, living your truth against a system that doesn't care about your truth and is going to roll forward doing what it's doing regardless of what you're doing or how much you push back against it. And how there are people who adopt a position that the system is good no matter what the system is doing, and that they will fight for that system and they will kill you to keep that system going if you push back against it. No matter what that system is doing to people, there will always be people whose sense of order and need for structure will override their emotional compassion or empathy for other human beings. And they will literally kill, maim, hurt, destroy, ruin utterly people who they think of as enemies of order and structure. You know, the military mindset is very much into this. It drills it into people, which is why people who are in the military can get into that mindset and become the worst possible versions of themselves. It's not mandatory when you go in the military that happen, but it happens often enough with weak-minded people or people who don't really understand how people are put together or what their role is in things, right? They lose their humanity. And I thought this film did a better than average job of showing that without going out of its way to try to show that. Very matter-of-factly, very in your face, very unapologetic about how the soldier mindset works. And I'll just kind of put it that way. The soldier mindset does not question things. It just wants order, and at any cost, right? And if a bunch of human beings have to die to make that happen, then the military mind, the soldier mind, is okay with that, right? And it's a thing about people. It's just how people are. Some people are. It's not about a belief set, because it doesn't matter what the belief set is that unites or drives the culture or society or group. It doesn't matter. Their need for order and, that kind of thing. I think you get the point, right? So I found that very interesting. I found that to be a very accurate, very interesting observation of humanity and the futility of fighting back against that in a big picture look. And yet, while it might be futile in the big picture, it is necessary at the individual level, on the ground, right? How do you live your life, right? Do you live your life according to your principles? Do you walk your walk, or do you just talk your talk? And the talk is cheap, and you don't. And when things get rough, are you actually prepared to back up your thoughts and beliefs and ideas that you've been telling yourself your whole life you believe? Are you really? Do you really believe it? It's interesting to consider and think about that, and then see situations presented like this movie does, where you are forced to make that decision, right? You're forced, to make those choices. That was well demonstrated in this movie. And I thought for that alone, it's worth seeing, even though I think the point might go over a lot of people's heads as far as I'm concerned. But I think a lot of people could get it, see it. It's there to see. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm looking for a movie review, but I just thought I'd share some thoughts with you about that, because Paul Thomas Anderson's a significant filmmaker. He's not nobody, and he makes really, really interesting, insightful, and incredibly emotionally complicated movies. The Master was really an amazingly well-made movie. It's weird as hell, and the soundtrack is disturbing, but the subject matter was disturbing. It's all about Scientology, right? And all about the codependent relationship between a cult leader and followers. I mean, that's what that movie is all about. And Paul Thomas Anderson nailed it. So it's so when I see his best work and then I see this thing, I'm kind of like, So, that's interesting, Swag Swap, that they filmed it near you. That's cool. Don't know why the live is freezing from time to time. I'm afraid that might be in your area, Siren. You might want to reboot or reset your computer or something, because I think the stream is healthy and going okay. Let me see here. Looks like the stream health is okay. Yeah, says it's excellent. Okay. So I think we're good on my end. Okay. All right. Yes, good. Okay, so now let's get on with y'all's questions. Now, please don't let me forget. I have 3 questions on the other screen too, but let's go ahead and get to these starting here. What's this first one? It always disappears from me on my little screen there. Okay, Uncle 2837. I enjoyed your podcast with Patty Moher, and I think you enjoyed it too. Yes, I did. It's great to hear about the experiences of someone who's seen the early days. I agree. There is a real treat to be had in hearing the survivors of, old school Scientology. If you saw, my interview with my mom years ago, or, my talk with Patty here this weekend, or some of the other talks I've done with people who were in Scientology back in the 60s and 70s, and what a vastly different culture we had. I mean, that was 50 fucking years ago at this point, right? I mean, damn, you know, the world has really changed. Crazy changes. And Scientology has kind of rolled with it and changed too over the years. Without changing what it is at its core, right? Which is kind of interesting. Anyway, I agree. Thanks for the comment there, Uncle. George Smiley asks, theory, it's always more useful to try to explain techniques like thought-stopping cliches or bounded choice than it is to tell someone they're in a cult, agree or disagree. No, I absolutely agree with you. It is far, far, far easier to get across an idea to somebody that is not personal to them if you want them to take it in and start connecting dots to themselves. It's easier and faster. I don't know, faster. I think faster. I think overall faster, certainly easier. You'll have less arguments. You'll have less pushback from a person if you give them information and then just let it brew. Just let it simmer, right? Okay, here's some information, simmer, simmer, simmer. Okay, here's some more information, simmer, 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 right? If you have the time and ability to just drop, you know, do seed planting, in other words, right? That's how you should do it. That's how you should go about changing hearts and minds, is through seed planting, because then the person that you're dealing with, see, everybody processes information in their own way at their own speed. They have their various biases and filters and things that stuff has to go through, and they have their own level of cognitive ability and emotional processing. And then below that, of course, they have their own moral foundations. And so these things work at the speed at which they work, and they don't work faster. And it's really hard to get across to people that you cannot rush someone's cognitive or emotional processing. They go at the speed they go at. And if you want to shortchange it or introduce shortcuts or try to jump to the chase or, you know, jump to the conclusion or something, sometimes you can push people in that direction, but often you will be making a mistake. Even if they say back to you, if you can, you know, it's a cult. Like here you are talking to somebody, and it's a cult, right? And you finally get them to go, okay, it's a cult, right? But they don't really, you know, it hasn't really connected in their mind the way you want it to. So even if they repeat back the words or seem to comply with what you want, it's not really fully gelled. I mean, I don't know, you know, an analogy might be like a sponge, you know what I mean? Like it takes a sponge a certain amount of time to absorb the water, right? And you can't, you know, you can throw the sponge into a tub, but it still takes what it takes for the material to absorb the stuff, right? It takes people what it takes for them to process. So when you're working with somebody individually on a, you know, who's in a extreme cult dogma headspace, it's, you know, you got to work with that individual. That's how it works. And then as far as evaluating for them versus giving them the opportunity to evaluate it themselves, that's always the route you'd prefer to go, is that they come to their own, have their own aha moment. You can try to force it on someone. Maybe you'll succeed. It's not like it never works, but, you know, working with the person at their speed is if possible, that is the way to go. Okay, let's put it that way. Yeah, exactly. There's some good stuff out there on the Scientology history stuff. There very, very much is. All right. George also asks, other than the infamous communication course, do any of the other intro classes put newbies into deep trance states? Okay, let's think about this. So you have the communications course. Well, yeah, because you have like HQS, I was thinking, right? Intro classes, though. Let's see. As far as the Scientology life improvement courses, let's take a look at those. What do we got here? Take a second here and actually check this out. It's a good question. All right, Church Scientology, life improvement courses. Okay, so beginning services. There are 5 courses on ethics and survival. How ironic. There are 6 courses on goals and purposes. There are 3 courses on survival and prosperity. There are 3 courses on marriage, and there are 3 courses on children. That's the breakdown per Scientology on their website here of their beginning services. So, ethics and survival, we have ups and downs in life, we have personal values and integrity, and we have how to improve relationships with others. We also have knowing who you can trust and how to achieve self-confidence. Now, in those 5 ethics and survival courses, you have the personal values and integrity course giving you or demanding from you that you do a full and searching overt withhold write-up at the end of the course. That's the final practical of that course is you do your first big OW write-up. You get used to it. You'll be doing a lot of them in Scientology. But that's the one where you do your first big one. And that's not necessarily trance-inducing, but it could be. Right? You could go into some pretty weird places doing an OW write-up if you're left to your own devices or given unusual, weird, trance-inducing kind of ways of remembering things or stuff like that. But the method of it is not trance-inducing by nature. Okay, but it could result in that. Okay, now when we look at goals and purposes, we have how to get motivated, formulas for living, Scientology tools to organize for success, effective time management, setting and achieving your goals, and Scientology tools for effective leadership. So those are 6 courses that are really teaching you Scientology's condition formulas, organizing board, and battle plans, and how to achieve goals using what they call their admin scale. These are not trance-inducing things. They're mostly hype motivational material and faux organizational strategies to organize or categorize things in your life so that you'll be more efficient. One of probably about 3,000 different systems developed over the centuries for people to do, to organize their lives, right? But nothing particularly trance-inducing there. When we look at the 3 survival and prosperity courses, Scientology tools for overcoming financial stress, Scientology tools for financial security, and Scientology principles of prosperity. Yeah, that's all about just making money, balancing your money, not getting credit, basically, giving you a bunch of advice that you're not going to follow as a Scientologist. And then there are the 3 marriage courses: the creating a successful marriage, maintaining a happy marriage, and salvaging a marriage. And the 3 kids courses about having, raising, and parenting, kids and teens. So none of that's particularly trance-inducing, no. So no. So that's kind of the rundown on that. If you go into that, probably from the communications class, the ideal route for somebody coming into Scientology then and now still, I think, is comm course, HQS, right? Or the whatever the new HQS course is, the qualified Hubbard Apprentice Scientologist course now or something, right? Where you're going to get into auditing. You're going to start doing objective processing on each other and TRs and stuff at a higher level. So that's going to keep you in that trance zone. So that would probably be the ideal way they'd want to get you in and doing that stuff. These life improvement courses are really just kind of window dressing. Yeah, they're just such light grade little intro things to Scientology. Yeah. Okay. Carry on here. Let's go switch over now. Actually, now is a good time. Let's go switch over to our preset questions. Here's our first one from Scientology. Where is it there? Come on up. Oh, no. Oh, I see. You're not popping up for me. Well, that's just silly. There we go. Okay, the Scientology geek. Say, for example, that the SO no longer had access to government-subsidized health care. What do you think would be done instead, if anything? Nobody's ever asked me for this before. This is a good question. This is a really good question. Because the Church of Scientology and the Sea organization specifically, right, the sort of core 24/7 fanatical Scientologists, the guys who work all the time for the church, they get all of their health care through the public access, through the dole, through welfare programs, through low-income programs. I personally went to LA County Hospital 2 or 3 times and signed papers that I don't make any money, and you have to pay for my services. And the church had actually set up a line with LA County Hospital where they knew if people came in from Scientology, because there were routinely people showing up at the hospital for various accidents and injuries on the base, they knew that Scientology was oh, church, yeah, Scientology, good, here you go, fill out the paperwork, and it's all covered by the state. Right? Your tax dollars hard at work. Not only do they have tax exemption to abuse and harm and cover up the harm and abuse that they do to their members, and the harm that their members do to each other, like Danny Masterson raping other Scientologists and the church covering it up for him. Not only do they do that and get full tax exemption for all that, but then when David Miscavige or other Sea Org executives beat on staff and they have to go to the hospital for care, right? Or they are pushed to do hard physical labor as either a disciplinary measure or because they have some, frantic emergency they have to deal with, so somebody gets hurt in the process, right? Your tax dollars get to pay for all of that. All of it. All the damage that David Miscavige and Scientology does to people, you're paying for. And they've been doing that for decades, right? They have billions of dollars in the bank, and they can't afford to pay for a Band-Aid for a Sea Org member. And I'm not even kidding, right? They do not pay for these people. They put them out to pasture in an old folks' home when they retire, and that's about as much money as the Sea Org invests in people. Other than having to deal with the senior citizen aspect of Sea Org life, the Church of Scientology couldn't care less about paying money for the medical care of its members. So what would happen is they'd be fucked, right? Basically, if you got cancer, if you had accidents, injuries, broken arm, whatever, right? You'd be fucked. There would be certain people in certain places at certain times who would, like the medical liaison people, the people who actually in the Sea Org have to deal with the people who hurt themselves. They're called MLOs, medical liaison officer. They're often have a minimal amount of medical training, first aid stuff. But generally speaking, they're the ones who are supposed to liaise with medical professionals to get you the care that you need. And their job would be made pretty much impossible. The only reason that job is even possible within the Sea Org is because the taxpayers pay for the medical care. The MLOs were constantly fighting, and I mean it was a raging battle every week to get money for the most basic of healthcare for senior Sea Org members or injured or disabled Sea Org members. It was a weekly battle, like Napoleonic battle, like guns were drawn. I mean, it was like that insane. So much shouting, so much screaming, so much stress exists in the Sea Org over medical bills and how they're going to get paid for. And if you get into a medical situation in the Sea Org, you have no idea what they are and are not going to cover for you. So if the state stopped paying for all of the Sea Org, then it would be, the consequences of that would be quite bad, because Scientology would really, really slow roll any efforts internally to change or revise their finance policies to pay for the medical needs of Sea Org members. David Miscavige does not want to do that. He couldn't care less if you die on post. The only reason that David Miscavige cares about dead bodies is because other people care about dead bodies, and the sort of bad public relations that comes with having dead bodies around, right? That's what David Miscavige hates. He doesn't, he doesn't care if you die on post. He really couldn't care less. So that's kind of the reality of the Sea Org, right? With medical stuff, it would be a complete disaster, and anybody who was seriously injured in the Sea Org could, as a result of losing welfare, they would very, very, very quickly probably escalate in the severity of their condition and probably die off pretty quick. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I kind of wish I was. I wish I didn't have this harsh of a take on this, but it's true. I really believe in my experience with Scientology that David Miscavige would just pretty happily shrug over Sea Org members dying. He really couldn't care less. So yeah, that's kind of how that kind of would actually look, to be honest. Yeah, ugh, right? All right, let's go back to your other questions here. Left one on the screen. Okay, let's get that off of there. How we doing? Yeah, exactly. You had to fight to get AOA to pay for the vitamins for your Purif. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. It's like every penny that a Sea Org member wants, they have to beg and beg on their belly to get it. David Miscavige wants something. Here's $10,000. Here's $30,000. Here's $100,000. David, get your nice clothes, get your nice shoes, eat the best food while your Sea Org members literally starve and die. That's the situation in the Sea Org, for real. Yeah, so it's that bad. It really is that bad. Okay, Uncle 2837, have you heard of the new 7-episode podcast from CBC's Uncover titled Allison After NXIVM, a weekly series that started November 10th, Apple Podcasts, CBC True Crime? I have heard of it. I have not yet watched it. I am going to, no doubt about it. I am very curious what Allison has to say, but I understand from what I've heard via some internal criticism from, I shall say, nameless ex-NXIVM members who we know, they're not impressed. And so it appears that Allison may be not quite, recovered yet. I don't know. I have literally not heard even 2 words that she has had to say about the experience. I've put it on hold purposefully because I knew when I started going into Allison Mack, I was going to want to go all the way, and I was going to want to spend hours really hearing everything she's got to say for herself as to where she's at. I have no doubt that Allison Mack, unless she's psychotic, has every chance of recovering from NXIVM just like anybody else does. People recover from cults, and it's not necessarily easy, but it's not impossible. It's hard work sometimes. In fact, sometimes it's really, really hard work. But anybody can do it. And Allison Mack can do it, right? You can get over this stuff and you can kind of see it clearly for what it is, and you can move on. And maybe she's there and maybe she's not. I don't know yet, but what I'm hearing is that she's not. So I will, like I said, I'll definitely be looking into this more closely to get you guys more of a rundown on her and that situation. But right now, excuse me, God, some gas. Sorry, guys. Anyway, yeah, that's all I can say right now on it. I don't want to say more. Okay, Irene, Irene. Good afternoon, Chris. I had to leave Q&A to join your live stream. Love your Q&A so much. Thank you for your work. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I just go down these things so I don't even read them beforehand. Okay. George Smiley asks, what were the first hints that your parents had lost their faith in Scientology? Well, they stopped showing up to classwork and stopped returning the org's phone calls, and were no longer interested in what was going on at the events. They weren't interested in what was happening organizationally. They weren't interested in the expansion news. You know, these were the things that I was trying to feed them or give them that they just weren't really down with or didn't really seem to care much about. And I just kept thinking, oh yeah, no, this is red flag, right? So the first hints were when my parents were critical of the church. The very, very, very first hint, the very first one I recall right now was when I was arguing with my parents about joining staff. They didn't want me to. And I was not shocked, but I was a little surprised. And I was definitely surprised at how vigorous they were about getting across to me that I really, really should not be joining staff at the Church of Scientology. They were very clear about that. I mean, we were yelling at each other about it, right? And I was 17 years old. I was not in the habit of yelling at my parents. I was not that kid. I was not a perfect little angel, and I was not, Mr. Innocent, but I was a good kid, and I didn't have a contentious relationship with my parents. At least I didn't think I did. And so when I came home and I was like, hey, they want me to see about working at the org, and it was like, it's like fucking nuclear explosions were going off. And I was just like, wow, what is happening? And my parents were very, very, very upset at the idea that I was going to do that. And I didn't understand why. And the things they started saying to me, and the anger and emotion with which they were saying it was completely shutting me down and turning me off from it, right? And I didn't want to hear what they were saying, not because of my loyalty to Scientology, just because it was the emotion of it, the anger that they were using to communicate about it is what was actually turning me off, where I couldn't really think about what they were saying because they were just hitting me too hard with it, right? They were just screwing it up so badly in handling me to not be on staff, right? That it was this real problem for me. And it went on for days. We were arguing back and forth for days and days. Again, very unusual. That just kind of didn't happen in my upbringing. So to have that battle like that war for like a week before my mom finally relented and would sign the contract, because I needed their signature because I was a minor. I was 17. I hadn't, I was just finished high school, and I was going to city college, the community college. And I hated it. And so they were all over me on it. And the things they were saying about the church were bugging me, right? They were like, it was bad enough that they were invalidating and telling me I didn't know what I was doing. That was, okay, typical, right? But that they were so negative about working for the church, right? It was like, you don't know what you're doing. But it never got to the point where they actually sat me down and said, look, here's what the day-to-day is like at a church, right? Here's what you're going to be doing with your day, and you're not going to be getting paid. And. Like, they didn't break any of that down. They just, kind of were in the place where they needed to make it clear to me that I didn't know what I was doing. So that was not working at all, right? Because I was just being the rebellious teenager. But the hints in, I'm way over describing all of that, but I'm just trying to paint the picture of what was going on. And so it buried in the middle of all of that, battles, war was all these red flags about how they really felt about Scientology staff. You know, not about Scientology itself. It was interesting to me in looking back now at how my parents and I could differentiate the church from the subject of the religion, the dogma of Scientology, because a lot of people can't. You know, they'll mush these things together, and they literally, in their mind, they are the same thing. But in my mind, they were separate. And it was interesting watching my parents be so critical of the church but not necessarily being critical of the tech, right? There could have been a lot more light bulb moments for me at that time if my parents had not been so angry with me about it. Anyway, that's what was happening there. Uncle 2837, have you ever tried being aware of your dreams and to take an active knowing effort to guide what happens, i.e. lucid dreaming? I have heard of this. I've read about it. There's that whole song, Silent Lucidity, by Queensryche, which is an amazingly good song. God, it's so good. I love that song. Which is all about dream control, right? About lucid dreaming. But no, I've never done it, never tried to do it, never really seriously engaged in any kind of practice or discipline or exercises to try to maintain self-awareness during dreaming. Apparently some people can do it. I don't know. I think it's also up in the air as to what dreaming is. You know, is it random electric storms in your brain while you're sleeping? Is it processing memory? Is it other things? You know, there's a lot of various explanations out there for what dreams are. I know that when I dream, I am living a movie, right? I'm living an experience that I'm not in control of. And weird things happen to me while I dream. But I have pretty typical dream phenomena. There's nothing really particularly unusual about me with dreaming. I'm no outlier when it comes to any of that. You know, I have sleep paralysis like everybody else, right? So you can't move. So in the dream, you can't move, or you feel stuck or trapped. You can't run. You can't do all these different things. You know, apparently you can't do math in a dream. Apparently that's the case. Like, I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me, but like, it's apparently impossible to actually perform mathematical calculations when you're dreaming, because that part of your brain is completely shut down or something. I read that somewhere, and I just think it's funny. I don't know if it's true, but I do think it's funny. Anyway. Okay, let's go ahead and flip over to our other question screen and do our second preset question, so I don't forget about these as we're going. These are from the email line, and this one's a little old. This was from a few months ago. I lost track of this question, and so I'm bringing it back up today. Sorry for the delay on this one. B asks me, I did TRs with my mom during TRs and objectives as a teenager. I was in the Sea Org and she was a public. I feel really sick to the stomach every time I think about this. It was the bit where you say, look at that wall, walk over to that wall, etc., and physically make the other person do it. Physically forcing my mom's face to look at the wall and making her walk to the other side of the room. It all felt so wrong, manhandling my mom or anyone like that. It was so against who I was as a person. I am left with this sickening feeling of guilt, shame, and I'm not sure what else about that time. Can you unpack this for me? Well, I can make some comments about this, so sure, let's talk about it. First off, there is absolutely nothing wrong with controlling somebody or something else. So now let's just get that out of the way first, right? The subject of control is a neutral, inherently neutral topic. Its context is what defines whether you're doing something useful or something destructive, right? Or something that's not having any effect at all. It's not the fact that you are engaged in controlling somebody else that is a bad thing or a wrong thing to be doing. If you do not control a little baby who's, crawling towards, some dangerous object, or, you don't move somebody, you know, off the train tracks when the train's coming and they don't see it happening, and you don't come in and step in and intervene and do something about that and exert some control over the situation, then it's going to be a disaster. So, so the first point of breakdown on this is that control is not inherently bad or wrong, and there's nothing at all, nothing wrong with moving somebody around, controlling somebody else, verbally or physically, depending entirely on the circumstances, okay? If you have, and now going to the subject of our past experiences with TRs and upper induct TRs, we were misinformed to a level that is criminal, right, about what the subject of control and humanity, you know, and human beings, we were grossly misinformed what that's all about by L. Ron Hubbard, and by apparently some of those TRs and some of that work was even have been written by or thought up by L. Ron Hubbard Jr. Might not even have been L. Ron Hubbard who came up with upper induct TRs. Apparently, it was Nibs who came up with that. But the idea is to exert an overabundance of control, you know, to grab somebody and move them around and that kind of thing. Well, it's an interesting exercise to do among two people who are voluntarily doing it. I mean, that, you know, nobody puts a gun to somebody's head and says you have to go do these TRs. You know, people go do them. And and they're trying, when they do it, they are under the impression that they are learning a skill that is going to be useful to them, in fact, really necessary to their life and to their ability to do Scientology, because you can't audit if you can't control someone. Right? You can't do this Scientology on them. And the idea when we were in is that we were helping, that we were learning all of this to try to help ourselves and help other people. And there is literally nothing wrong with that intention. Now, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, you know, there's a little bit of a paradox in human behavior, but don't take that paradox onto yourself or within your own personality and think you're responsible for that, or that somehow you should feel shame or blame or regret. You didn't know what you were doing, and you didn't understand what L. Ron Hubbard was trying to do to you. And lacking that understanding, you cannot be held responsible for those things that you did not know or could not respond to. Responsibility, as a word, means the ability to respond to a thing. And you could not respond to something you don't know anything about. When somebody is lying to you and deceiving you and telling you that what you're doing right now is going to lead to world peace and personal spiritual immortality and nothing but rainbows and butterflies for the entire world, then you weren't wrong for believing them and then doing what they told you to try to create that outcome. You're right? It's not on you. And it's misplaced shame, because you didn't do anything shameful. Because you didn't know. Now, once you start learning what's actually going on there, that's when your responsibility starts becoming a thing, right? And maybe some of this blame and guilt and shame come from the fact that there were inklings at that time that maybe something's wrong here. Maybe there's red flags. There's a problem. There's issues. I don't like doing this. I don't think I should be doing this, but I'm kind of doing it anyway. Like that kind of thing. Those doubts and reservations or ideas or hesitations or problems that you had back when you were in the cult, right? But you negated that. You forget it. You closed the door on it. You used thought-stopping cliches. You for whatever reason, you didn't listen to those things. And now you might be beating yourself up about that. And that also would be misplaced abuse of yourself, right? Because you didn't know, couldn't know, and now you do. And now you can be responsible for what you know and make sure you don't do it again. But you can't go back and change the past. You can only learn to look at and frame it in such a way that you can live with the past. And the past is often a place where we engage in really stupid stuff. We do incredibly dumb shit stuff all the time, and we learn from those mistakes. The people who continue to do stupid things and don't learn from them are the people that we get to call stupid, right? But you learned. So anyway, you know, there's only so much I can go on this in terms of speaking in general terms, of course, right? If you want to contact me directly, we can talk more specifically about your exact circumstances, because I can't go deeper into your circumstances without knowing more about you. But in a general sense, I hope the things I've said here about this are at least somewhat useful or helpful in analyzing or you know, thinking about your past. I don't know if it's possible, by the way, for you to speak with your mom about this, but that's also something worth doing. I've spent hours breaking down all the Scientology crap with my mom and my dad, but mostly my mom, and really running each other through the coals, right? Really raking each other over the coals a little bit on what we did and didn't do, and what we're responsible and not responsible for, right? And what we're sorry for, and what we regret, and what we feel guilt and blame and shame for, and whether that's justified or not. We've had those conversations many, many times. And if it's possible for you to speak with your mother about these things, I would highly, highly encourage you to do so, right? As another point on this. Okay. I think I'll leave it at that for now, and hope that that is helpful to people. Okay. All right, let's cut that question off there. How we doing here? Just check in on this. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm sure we'll get the regular comments back up on the screen in a second when it starts refreshing. I have no idea how the stream is going. I'm like, is this any good or not? Seems like it is. Okay, let's carry on. Xion asks, what does it mean to take on the valence of a person suppressing you? Okay, great. This is very easy. L. Ron Hubbard uses the word valence in Scientology to describe a personality package. He says that it's the sum. A valence is the idea you carry around in your head about what somebody else's personality is. How you imagine my personality, right, would be something you have in your head. You know, oh, this is Chris Shelton's personality, right? If you started acting like me, like taking that valence, that personality the idea that you have, and yeah, anyway, it's like that, right? It's like your idea of somebody else's personality is a valence. You have thousands, you know, everybody you meet, you have this kind of concept. And when you adopt a person's personality and start acting like them, you're in their valence, is the phrase in Scientology. Oh, you're in your dad's valence. You've taken on your mom's valence. You're in your boss's valence. However, that's the expression or the way that you would describe it. You're taking on their personality. The reason Hubbard says this happens is because the suppressive person is the winner, the victor, the person who's dominating you and overtaking and overwhelming your personality with theirs. So you start acting like them because they're the ones who are winning in this situation and you're the one who's losing. So are you going to keep acting like a loser, or are you going to start taking on the valence of the winner, right? The person who's actually, dominating and succeeding here. That's the idea with that, is that it's pretty much that simple. Yeah. So it's assumed, of course, in Scientology that when you are being suppressed in PTS, that you're in the valence of the SP. That's why you're potentially trouble, right? PTS. Okay. Miles Field, how easy is it for me to get into Scientology and work up the ranks? Well, how much money you got? Because that's what determines how fast you go up the bridge. Kind of, as well as your commitment to the tech, right? And your understanding of it. So, because there are people who, for example, get onto OT7 and they're on that level for like 10 years. And then there's other people who are on it for like 3 or 4. So some people take to some parts of Scientology differently than others. But as far as how easy is it for you to get into it and work up the ranks, it's very, very easy. I mean, you just got to show up, pay for the services, and report to them. You know, the classwork or the auditing, or both. All right. Miles also asks, Scientology told me if I had an argument, there's always a third party. Yet there wasn't one, and so they said the third party was my thoughts. Do you believe this? Is that where they go with that now? That's pathetic. That is so funny. Okay, let's talk about this for a second, just because it's funny and we haven't talked about it for a while. Oh, the third party is that voice in your head. Sorry, that's just really funny. Okay, so the third party law in Scientology is just hilarious. Let's see if we can pull it up on the network here. Scientology Handbook, third party law. Here we go. Let's get it straight from the source. Okay. Third party law, violence and conflict. Okay. Trying to see how much of this I want to read to you guys. Hubbard says that this is the cause. It is the cause of war. So funny, because Hubbard also says the reactive mind is the cause of war. So which is it, asshole? Third parties or reactive mind, right? Or is it OT3 and Xenu and body thetans that's actually the cause of unrest and war on this planet? You jerk. Okay, so I'm talking about Hubbard there, right? Hubbard literally said all 3 of those things are the cause of war, right? So which one is it? So violence and conflict among us, individuals and nations have been with us for ages, and their causes have remained a complete mystery. A mystery finally solved in Scientology. If Chaldea could vanish, if Babylon turned to dust, if Egypt could become a badlands, if Sicily could have 160 prosperous cities and be a looted ruin before the year 0 and a near desert ever since, and all this in spite of all the work and wisdom and good wishes and intent of human beings, then it must follow as the dark follows sunset, that something must be unknown to man concerning all his works and ways. Boy, Hubbard's really waxing poetic today, isn't he? And that this something must be so deadly and so pervasive as to destroy all his ambitions and his chances long before their time. Such a thing would have to be some natural law unguessed at by himself. I mean, Hubbard's prose is so bad. Okay, so the law, the third party law is a third party must be present and unknown in every quarrel for a conflict to exist, or for a quarrel to occur. An unknown third party must be active in producing it between 2 potential opponents, or while it is commonly believed to take 2 to make a fight, a third party must exist and must develop it for actual conflict to occur. So, yes, Hubbard is actually saying in big, bold, capital letters that people don't get into fights unless some third party engages or goads them into it. Well, I'm sure L. Ron Hubbard had a lot of personal experience at being the third party he says must exist in every conflict. Because L. Ron Hubbard was a master manipulator and knew very, very easily how easy it is to get people fighting one another by lying to both of them about each other. Right? So this is just another control op disguised as a natural law that L. Ron Hubbard would utilize in his interpersonal relations and then foisted it off on the world as though it's the cause of fucking war. I mean, Hubbard was just classic narcissist and projectionist at that level. So that's pretty much what that's all about, right? Is the idea that there has to be a third party. Two people, let's just be clear and cut through the bullshit, right? Two people are perfectly capable of generating an endless feud between the two of them without having to have any other person around to goad them into it. However, it's perfectly legitimate and a perfectly valid thing to see that sometimes when two people fight, there is a third person goading them on. This is what soap operas live and thematically revolve around. Right? Every single soap opera is nothing but an exercise in plot lines revolving around third-party conflict. So yes, it's a thing, but to imagine, like everything in Scientology, that that's the only thing going on, and that by knowing this one thing, you somehow have the key to unlock world peace, is where Hubbard loses the goddamn plot like he does every time he goes making claims like that. And that's why people in cults end up acting so fucking stupid, because they think simple solutions like that are all you need to resolve all the chaos and confusion of life. And it just doesn't work that way. Okay. Not a bad point. I'm moving right along. Okay, XIN asks here, have you ever engaged in coffee shop auditing? Oh yeah. Or did you ever use little Scientology? Did you ever use little Scientology types of actions to make a person feel better, like taking a walk, to look around, or to practice being there? Oh dude, all the time. All the time. This was my number one use of Scientology, was to use it in small, simple ways to help people in small, simple ways. Taking a walk was something I used constantly, almost daily sometimes in Scientology. Getting some space, stuff like that. There was one particular thing I'll share with you guys, because to this day, it still sticks with me as a very, very, very fun and funny thing to do. And I don't imagine that I'm actually doing any kind of spiritual exercise when I do this. It's just imagination, but it is kind of fun. And I always thought when I was in Scientology, this never got old for me. It always was a little trick I could do to kind of distract myself a little bit, or introduce a little moment of novelty that would distract me from my, the daily abuse that was my life, right? So one of the things that Hubbard said to do in a lecture is he said, okay, you tell somebody to feel the wall, or to, feel the desk, or, feel something, right? Okay, good. Let's feel this bottle. Great. Okay. Now, put your hand on the bottle and have the bottle feel your hand. What? What? Woo! What a weird sensation in my hand all of a sudden, right? To have this idea that the thing is feeling my hand, right? It's just this kind of reverse imagination thing that just never gets old for me. Now, Hubbard said what you're doing there is sort of perceiving your body reverse-wise through your thetan perceptions or something. I don't believe any of that. I just think it's a fun way to, flip the script on yourself with your perceptions. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that one out there for you guys. I did engage in coffee shop auditing, is non-formal Scientology applied in the real world, where you're doing auditing type procedures on somebody, but you're literally doing it like at a coffee shop or at the park or something. You can just start auditing somebody. Hubbard encouraged this a lot in the early days, and then stopped talking about it and discouraged it later on in Scientology. But the idea was to spread Scientology through use, through application. and to do so in the big wide world. So you wouldn't necessarily even tell somebody that you were auditing them or doing a process on them. You would just do it. And Hubbard would encourage this kind of behavior. You know, John Travolta loves this kind of stuff. So that's what Coffeeshop auditing is. And yeah, I did some of that when I was in Scientology. I would practice Scientology procedures on people sometimes in a light way, and usually letting them know what I was doing. I wasn't actually, let's see here. No, sometimes I would use little insightful questioning or trying to be insightful. I would use questioning, or I would try to get a person looking inward at something to try to maybe do a little light straight wire style recall, you know, maybe on some emotional problem or issue they were having, right? Something like that. I would do that sometimes when I was in Scientology. Yeah, that kind of thing. Okay, let's carry on here. Benson Shelton, when you receive strange questions that come in threes, have you ever considered it might mean the questioner is simply using an AI to make the questions? Maybe. I don't know. I'd never had that thought. I know I get a medley of questions from a particular person who I know and have talked to. So I don't think those come from AI. But maybe they do. I never really thought about it. I didn't think anybody would ever take the time or trouble to use AI to ask me questions. That's funny. Okay. All right, Xion, the ARC triangle, affinity, reality, and context equals understanding. No, communication, not context. Yeah, I wouldn't alter the ARC triangle to context and say it's still a true thing. Understanding it consists of a lot more than affinity, reality, and context. It's an interesting exercise thinking about the word understanding, actually, sort of thinking about what that really means. Kind of like emotion, right? Start thinking about what emotion means. You're going to be on it all afternoon. Xion, do you still get Scientology promo materials or letters anymore? I get tons. I get some almost every day. No, I am 100% off their mailing lists. I haven't received Scientology mail in years and years and years. I am successfully dead filed. Shane X, what are some Church Scientology processes, auditing, word clearing, etc., used by other groups? NXIVM, Landmark, etc. Oh, okay. I know you were Xion. I totally know you were. I know. Okay. Landmark specifically takes L. Ron Hubbard's definition of causation, responsibility, objective, subjective. Werner Erhard was actually having his staff audited and having them get metered ethics interviews at Landmark headquarters in San Francisco back in the 70s. They had ethics officers and they had auditors on staff. So some of what they would use would just be a direct Scientology stuff. Other times what they would do, like in Landmark or in Est, which became Landmark, they would take Hubbard's materials and then they would even use the definitions out of the Scientology dictionaries. And then and then Werner one day came in and said, okay, I want new names for all of these things. Same ideas. We're not going to change anything, but we're going to relabel them so it's not Scientology. So instead of cognition, it's distinction or something like that, right? I know Landmark has this very important technology. There's another term they rip off from Scientology. Their technology. It's such high-handed crap, right? These people are so arrogant. So let's see. NXIVM took clear concepts of OT, concepts of the suppressive, the antisocial personality. Keith Raniere was just fascinated by Hubbard's take on SPs and stuff. He took all of that stuff in, and I think he relabeled it also, but he used a lot of that same material. Let's see. I believe Landmark Forum has some version of a TR's like exercise as well, right? They don't sit in chairs staring at each other exactly the same way, but I think they have some kind of process like that. And the processes that were used in the seminars and the workshops, like I think there was a process about having some people come and stand in a line in front of the group, and then the concept of having everybody standing there, imagining the audience seeing them naked and then turning it on them so you see the audience naked, or imagining, you know, there's like a death or a negative process or something. There's some kind of thing I'm forgetting right now that they do where they flip it. They have you all introverted and kind of fearful and anxious, and then they flip it where you're the one who has all the power, and the audience is now they're going to get it from you or something. And I just remember that concept. That came out of Scientology stuff, you know, stuff like that. I think Werner, Keith Raniere, these self-help, self-improvement guys took an awful lot of stuff from neuro-linguistic programming as well. Hubbard didn't. Hubbard already had his stuff developed by the time neuro-linguistic programming was really becoming a thing. And Hubbard was not into taking things from the psych field openly and bringing it into Scientology, right? So he would have had a real hard time, you know, bringing NLP in as NLP. But Werner didn't have any problem with that, right? Keith Raniere didn't have any problem with that. Yeah, so that's not really science. I guess I'm saying that they had other sources too, is why I got onto that. But as far as other things, and so I'm trying to think of other things in Scientology. Well, organizationally, there's also, let's not forget, there's also organizational ripoff. Werner, for example, with Landmark took the concept of registrars as salespeople, right? Ethics officers, things like that. He took over into his organization too. Lots of very, very direct parallels between those two groups. You wouldn't see so many parallels, for example, between like the Unification Church and Scientology. There's not as much direct crossover between those groups. Okay, let's move on here. Okay, Matador, young Matador. Hey, Chris, this year marks 30 years since the death of Lisa McPherson. Yes, Tony and I were talking about that. What lessons do you think we should draw from her awful demise and the role of cults when it comes to managing vulnerable people? I'm pretty cynical when it comes to this stuff, so I don't want to just, you know, just dump a bunch of cynicism on you guys. The lessons we should be learning from Lisa McPherson are that you should never, ever, ever give over your health or, you know, mental or physical health to people who have no idea what they're doing, or who think they have some line in on some special secret knowledge or technology, which they just don't, right? Without licensed oversight or regulation. You really owe it to yourself to you know, when you get care, or when you know, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating to watch people continue to put their trust in all the wrong things, you know, and Lisa McPherson putting her trust in Scientology literally ended her life. That's how bad of a mistake you can make, trusting people who have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And Scientologists have no idea what they're doing. They are so full of themselves and their own self-importance that they can't see how self and society destructive they are. They lie to themselves 24/7. And if there's a lesson to be learned in knowing about and watching or the events unfold of Lisa McPherson in Scientology, it should be, lessons like, oh, we have licensed medical professionals for a reason. Oh, right? But people don't get that at all. They watch the Lisa McPherson debacle, and then they go home and use crystals and Reiki to solve their problems, right? And you're just like, do you just not like get life? Like what is it about all of this you don't understand, right? When you give over your power, your authority, and your health to predators, don't be surprised when they prey on you and you're broke and your life is ruined as a result. I mean, it's like, it's so not hard, but at the same time, it's impossible because people are just so emotionally invested in stuff. And even if we can't prevent all the harm and the predation and the nonsense, if we could at least dial back our desire and our need to be so fucking certain about everything all the time, right? Because that's, in the end of the day, why was Lisa McPherson in Scientology? Because she was sure it was going to help her while it killed her. Never questioned it, right? And you're just like, my God, we've got to learn how to question ourselves and question the situations we're in before disaster happens, not after. And that is such a struggle for people, such a struggle. So it's really, really, really hard to get that across to people. So I guess I'm asking for impossible lessons, really, right? When I start talking about my frustrations with that. So I'll dial it back. I'm probably just being silly. No, I mean, really, I really am. I'm putting more there than should be there. So as far as what lessons can we learn or should we draw that we could actually really learn, there is no group that should have the power or authority to withdraw somebody from competent medical care who can't care for themselves, who don't know what they're doing, right? I mean, to have a bunch of Scientology goons go down to the hospital and sign Lisa McPherson out of there because she signed some religious commitment agreement that she wasn't going to get psych care, right? So they're going to get her out of the nasty hands of organized medicine and big pharma and big psych, and then kill her, right? Should tell you everything you need to know about how stupid people can be and how you shouldn't just be allowed to just sign over anything to anybody just because, you know what I mean? Like there's the guardrails on this just are non-existent. But it's so hard to do that right without making it worse for people. I don't know. I guess I'm wrapping myself around a pole right now, so I'm just going to move on. Lutz, do you like any Roland Emmerich movie? Apparently turned 70 this week. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I like a lot of Roland Emmerich movies. I like... Sorry, the title is escaping me. Jesus, Independence Day. Jesus. Independence Day. I love Independence Day. It's a great movie. Let's see what else we got here. I don't like all of their movies. I don't like all of Roland's movies, that's for sure. Come on now. I don't think I realized all this time that he was German. That's a silly thing for me to not know. Yeah, Independence Day, Day After Tomorrow, 2012, Godzilla, Moonfall. Oh, they're doing a Stargate remake. Okay. Universal Soldier. That's a fun one. The Patriot, not a fun one. Stargate, great one. So Roland Emmerich has had some really good ones and some not so great ones. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Fun movies. Really the epitome, like them or not, Roland's movies tend to be the epitome of popcorn movies for sure. Yeah. Okay, Angry Choad, will you be doing more episodes about Mormonism with Shannon and Bryce? Yes, I will. You've asked me about this recently, and I am arranging another episode with them. What do you think about garlic powder? It's good. It's great for cooking, and it's really, really effective for keeping vampires out of my house. What's your favorite 80s band? And who would you like to see in a 90s music festival? Oh, man, it's really, really, really impossible for me to nail down the 80s to one band as my favorite. I mean, I jumped from Duran Duran to The Police to... Jesus Christ, there's so many good bands. Foreigner, Journey, Huey Lewis and the News, Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks, Don Henley, the Eagles, 80s, Lionel Richie, Michael Jackson, Aerosmith, Run DMC. So much good music. So much good music. New Order. Blue Monday, yeah. Right, New Order. Practically the epitome of the 80s is, New Order. Depeche Mode. I mean, all of it, I could not even begin to rank. I mean, I guess I could if you held a gun to my head, but yeah. No, I get it, Benson Shelton. I get it. Yeah, no, I know that this is not a medley of AI-generated questions as I understand it, but they are kind of fun. I think these are just random because Choad likes to throw random stuff at me, actually, and it is kind of fun to get it. Who would you like to see in a 90s music festival? Vertical Horizon. Now, in hindsight, I wish I could see Nirvana. I used to hate Nirvana. 90s music is not as big for me as the 80s were, because I was so sequestered in the Sea Org for most of the decade, half the decade, and I wasn't really culturally literate in the 90s as I was in the 80s, which kind of sucks, because my 90s time, the Verve, who were those guys? Yeah, Bittersweet Symphony. Oh, that's a great song. Not really super big on the Spice Girls or the boy bands. Oh, AC/DC. Yeah. Rush. 80s Rush. Oh, the best. Actually, I guess at the end of the day, I would have to say Rush. Because Rush is 70s, 80s, and I mean, Rush is forever, but they're pretty much my favorite band. I guess after all of that, I come back down to Rush. Okay, X-Science asks here, have you heard of synesthesia? How would it be to be like that? Well, I don't know, because I don't know what that is. Synesthesia. Let's find out what this is. Not heard of this before. Perceptual phenomenon in which stimulation of one sensory or cognitive pathway leads to involuntary experiences in a second sensory or cognitive pathway. Okay. People with synesthesia may experience colors when listening. May experience colors when listening to music, see shapes when smelling certain scents, or perceive tastes when looking at words. People who report a lifelong history of such experiences are known as Synesthetes. Okay. May associate certain letters and numbers with certain colors. Okay. Okay. Or they may be simultaneously perceived colors associated with or evoked. Okay, got it. Got it. It's association. It's an interesting form of association, I guess. Little is known about how it develops, maybe during childhood, abstract concepts. Yeah, it seems to be an interesting brain connection, connecting dots between senses in an interesting relational way. Maybe it's a memory thing, maybe it's a perception thing, maybe a little bit of both. I think, for example, about people who are not interpreters, people who do impressions. Comedians or performers who do impressions will sometimes talk about how they will think about the impression or the voice or the what they're doing in colorful or spectrumy ways. All right, like this person that I'm doing is a little browner and this person is a little whiter. Like they have this association, not racial, sorry. I mean, I could say blue, yellow, green. Like they associate the voice or the timbre or the attitude of this person they're imitating, and they lock it in their mind under a spectrum of color. And that's how they think about the universe of impressions that they're doing. And that's how they connect the dots there. Or they connect it with, I've started with colors or sound. They can connect it that way, right? You might think of certain foods and then have sounds connected with those foods, which is interesting, right? Like you're kind of immediately connecting these things. I've seen, that's the closest thing I can think of as far as people in a real world sense who use or think in that way, or at least something related to what you're bringing up with synesthesia. That's really interesting. I've not heard that word or connected or done a lot with that before, but I'm familiar with it to that degree. I can comment on it to that degree. Not a lot of commentary really, but interesting. Yeah. How would it be to be like that? You know, it's interesting because I don't know that it would feel so different to the person who has it. It's just their way of thinking or their way of connecting related concepts, right? Or their way of analogizing a thing. It's probably a little deeper than analogies. I don't mean to make it sound like it's just that, but it's like that, and that's interesting. But I don't think the experience of it would be anything wildly weird. I don't think you'd be walking around going, oh, it's so weird that I do this, because most people don't even know what they're doing until they hear about what other people do. And then they go, well, that's not what I do. Doesn't, until somebody tells you, you wouldn't even know. Not a mouse. If you could live anywhere for a year, where would it be? What's the most, another medley. What's the most unexpected skill you've picked up in your journey? If you could only eat one food for a week, what would it be? Cool. I love these medleys. If you could live anywhere for a year, where would it be? New Zealand. I would want to go down to New Zealand and live down there. Yeah, that's where I would go. And I'd probably want to stay there for longer than a year, but certainly a year would be an amazing thing to do there. I really want to go there. What's the most unexpected skill you've picked up in your journey? New Jersey. Yeah, I would not want to go live in New Jersey for a year. I'll tell you that. Sorry. I'm trying to think of unexpected skills. Unexpected. I mean, I think all the things that I've sort of developed as skill sets in the work that I do are pretty usual, not very unusual. I'm trying to think of something weird about what I do or know about over these last many years. I mean, unexpected skill. I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to sure how it's going to go over. And it would be something that I would be a little like, okay, if somebody else said this to me. So, yeah, I don't know actually if I even want to say that. It's a real stumper of a question. You wouldn't expect something like that to stump me like this, but I really am. I'm totally stumped. I have no idea what to say right now. Most unexpected skill I've picked up. I don't think I have any unexpected skills. I think everything I can do is very predictable and very usual and average and routine. I don't really think I have anything unusual I've picked up that way. So I'm just stumped. I'm sorry, but I just don't have an answer. If you could, I mean, I was going to say that I have this, I only say this because it seems so hard for people to do this. But it is endlessly frustrating for me to not understand why it isn't more obvious how I can see somebody and within about a minute of watching them know whether they're a predator or not. And I don't understand why other people can't do that. I have not been wrong in my personal life or in professional life. I sometimes miss people. Sometimes I won't see it, but when I do see it, I'm always right. And it's weird to me that other people can't see it because it just is there. It's just, you know, but I don't think there's anything unusual about that or unexpected about it. And I don't even know that I want to put it out there like I'm so good I can just look at you and tell. You know, that's just arrogance, right? So I don't want to like make it sound like that, but it works out that way. And it's just weird to me how people can't see it. It's just the most obvious thing. You know, you just see how people talk and relate to other people and the way they look at them. You can see it right away. And apparently other people just can't. And I'm just, it's frustrating because I don't think of myself as any highly skilled observer, or, you know, maybe I should, but I don't. I just don't think about myself that way, right? It just seems, yeah, anyway. Okay, and if you could only eat one food for a week, what would it be? Ooh, potatoes. Potato recognition. One food. Oh, that would be torture for me because I'm ADHD, man. I need novelty in my life or my life becomes torture. So being stuck with one food for a week would absolutely be, you know, nightmare material to me. I'm thinking, for some reason, French fries come to mind, but obviously I'm not going to live on French fries. I guess rice and beans. I guess I'm going to say rice and beans as the one food. I'll put those together because it's a complete meal. You can spice it so it can taste differently from meal to meal. You know, I guess I would say rice and beans, just because nutritionally it would do the job. Okay, moving along here, Old Bay. Yeah, I'm probably going to wrap up pretty soon. I think I'm losing steam here or something. If you could time travel, which historical event would you visit first? Christ's crucifixion. First thing I usually think of, the crucifixion. What's the most unusual hobby you've ever tried or wanted to try? Now I'm getting these medleys. This is awesome. And if you could have dinner with any fictional character, who? Ooh, ooh, ooh. Unusual hobby. I don't think zip lining or skydiving are considered hobby. I mean, maybe they're hobbies. I wish I could engage in both of those activities without all the fear. I don't have a fear of falling. I have a fear of hitting the ground. I would like to try water skiing. There we go. That's the most for me. That would be the most unusual thing I've wanted to try. Probably a really boring answer. If you could have dinner with any fictional character, who? Jesus, Buddha. Jesus, I just said both of those guys were fictional. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, don't know about that one. Fictional character. Harry Seldon. Harry Seldon would be the fictional character I'd want to have dinner with. The guy who invented the From the Foundation trilogy. Yeah. Okay. Margaret asks, what's the weirdest thing you've ever Googled out of curiosity? Oh, I'm not going to tell you that. If you could instantly master any instrument, which would you choose? Keyboard, piano. Yeah, because that's the key to all other instruments. If you could switch lives with anyone for a day, who? Elon Musk. And I would undo everything. In one day, I would undo his entire empire. If I could switch lives with anyone in for a day, Musk. Yeah, I would undo his entire bullshit. Okay, TM. The Golden Age of Tech briefing. Miscavige had those scripts for doing auditing correctly. Yes, it made him seem like auditing was a decision tree. Yeah, that's right, almost. Did they ever try to automate auditing completely? No. Even Miscavige acknowledged, I think, that there is no way to do auditing without a live human being there, right? You cannot automate the process entirely. If you could turn it into bot auditing, would he want to? Yeah, he would. Miscavige is probably, I wonder how on top of it he is as far as trying to generate an AI auditor. That's exactly the kind of thing Miscavige would just salivate over, actually. That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that aspect of it. But yeah. Miscavige would definitely be into that because you know how much he hates people. He wants to automate the whole org. So if he could automate auditing, he would try that. There have been efforts in the independent Scientology field to automate auditing, but not in the official Church of Scientology to do that. There was a guy years ago who developed some kind of auditor scripted thing. It was before AI, but it was a machine computer generated thing. I remember that. Paul something, I think his name was. Okay, Xion asks, how about Hperthymesia? Okay, you guys are really pushing my vocabulary today. Hperthymesia. What is these words? Okay. HSAM is a condition that leads people to be able to remember an abnormally large number of their life experiences. Oh, yeah. That's a weird one. There have been fewer than 100 people in the world that have been diagnosed with the condition as of 2021. This is the people that Hubbard said Dianetics could create out of anybody, right? Is perfect recall of all life experiences. It's a mutant ability. I mean, it's very, very, very unusual in people. But Hubbard put it forward as a standard that all humans can achieve, and he was just dead wrong about that. Oh, I didn't know THX 1138 had an AI religious confession booth. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So yeah, I never saw the whole movie THX 1138. But yeah, anyway. An AI religious, oh my God. Yeah, that's never going to work. You guys do know AI is going the way of the dodo, right? I mean, I hope you all know that. I mean, this is not something that's long for the world. Not, LLMs might be around for a little while, but we're going to stop calling them AI at some point because they're nothing intelligent about it, right? It's truly artificial. They're nowhere near actual AI. I mean, you all know that, right? It's a dream. It's a pipe dream. You've been being lied to for years, right? There is no AI, and it's not coming. They don't know what they're doing. The people who program computers trying to create will and intent and motivated reasoning do not know what they are doing. So they're not going to create it in computers. It's really interesting knowing certain things about that and then watching everybody get it so wrong in a mass way and knowing you can't do anything about it but wait for everybody to realize how wrong they are, which is happening now. It's wild. It's just wild watching that, I'm not the world's past master at everything. I am so stupid in so many areas. There are so many things I don't know jack shit about. I mean, I'm telling you, I am a moron in some areas. But when it comes to psychology, I'm not. And when it comes to what puts people together, I'm not, right? I understand that. And the people who write this intelligent crap, these AI programs and stuff, they're absolutely clueless about what goes on in the human mind. It's extraordinary to watch the levels of arrogance and conceit around that. It really is. It's amazing. So, okay. Just to make it super clear, right? I'm a moron on so many things. But man, when it comes to our psychology, it's sad how bad off people are on that one. Okay, this was fun. This was interesting. I got a little on some of those questions, but you guys are good. Thanks for coming around and blasting me with all this stuff this week. I really appreciate your viewership and your support as always. I really do. The book is coming along, by the way, just to update you. It's been through my first full round of edits, back to the editor now. We did some changes. We did some improvements. I added some things. I hope to have it finalized in the next 2 weeks, which seems like a very realistic target to me right now. And so I can get this thing published in December if all goes well. I still have not yet dived down the rabbit hole of what it's going to take to self-publish now in 2025. And I need to get that done so I get all my ducks in a row so that as soon as I have the manuscript completed and ready to rock, that I can just, get it through the process of publishing it. I'm self-publishing. It'll be on Amazon, just like my first book. And then I'll do I also have to still finalize the title, come up with the cover, and put it all together. And then after it's finalized, then do the recording as well for the audiobook. So it's all rolling. Everything is on schedule right now, exactly as I planned. I'm very, very, very pumped about that. I have not yet started outlining or writing the next book because I'm trying to finish this one, but I have it about half done in my head. The next book on the REM model, which will be what that's all about. So things are going well there. And yeah, and there have been other very, very good reasons this week to be extremely happy about things. So I've had some nice joy in my life this week. Benson is something that that Mel and I are just kind of getting over, and we're still in the process of doing that. It's probably going to be a while. of us doing that. So I probably won't talk too much about that a whole lot more. Benson, we have no leads, no clues, no nothing. He just is gone. And we're very, very sad about that, right? So we're just kind of doing our thing on that. And if everything goes the way I think it will, I'll be taking December off from doing the podcast and this show, to give myself a little December break. December tends to be the slowest time on YouTube anyway. The X-cult space on YouTube is kind of dead right now. Like, there's really nothing happening there. Every channel is kind of, on the decline right now in the cult world that I can tell. And my channel is tiny in the cult space compared to other people's channels, but it's all just kind of whatever right now. So it's given me some time to think about, where I'm going and what I'm trying to do. And so this book I'm publishing right now is a big step in that direction. And then working on this next year, working on getting my REM model out there is kind of the general direction of where I'm trying to go right now. I think I've got something useful and true that can help people. And so that's what I'm going to try to do, is get it out there in a published form so that it's so that it's understood that it's mine and that I want people to use it, right? And then let's see, anything else I need to tell you guys about in terms of planning or anything? I don't think so. Yeah. So we'll be taking a break in December on the podcast and on the live show. I'll still be doing my show with Tony every week. We won't take a break on that. So every week you'll still have an update on the world of Scientology through Tony Ortega and me. And if there is anything else y'all want to see me doing, feel free to write me, suggest it to me. I love your suggestions. I always love what you guys throw my way. Whether I act on it or not is, what the timing and my interest level and all of that. But if you want to see it, if you want to see me talk about it, whatever, throw it my way. All right. So with all of that, I'm going to wrap up for the day. Thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.